The first warning wasn't a message. It was silence. Commander Ethan Voss noticed it before anyone else, not because he was smarter, but because he was watching the one thing no one ever bothered to monitor closely anymore, the gaps. Orbit should never be quiet. There were always signals, civilian chatter, military pings, telemetry streams, navigation beacons. A constant, invisible noise wrapping the Earth like a second atmosphere. But now? Nothing. Ethan leaned forward in his chair aboard the ISS Resolute, eyes narrowing at the tactical display. One by one, the blinking indicators representing satellites winked out, not with alarms, not with explosions, just gone. No debris. No warning. Just absence. "Control, this is Resolute," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I'm reading multiple satellite losses across sectors 3 through 9. Confirm?" Static answered him. A thin, cold line of unease crept down his spine. "Control," he repeated. Still nothing. Behind him, one of the junior techs laughed nervously. "Probably just a comms blackout, sir. Solar interference maybe?" Ethan didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the display. This wasn't interference. Interference didn't erase hardware. More icons vanished. GPS arrays. Weather systems. Defense networks. Gone. 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 The silence was spreading. "Bring up wide-spectrum scan," Ethan ordered. "Already trying," another crew member replied, fingers flying across the console. "But I'm not getting returns. It's like..." "Like what?" The tech hesitated. "Like there's nothing out there to scan." That didn't make sense. Space didn't just empty itself. Ethan pushed back from his seat and floated closer to the observation window. Below him, Earth turned in slow, peaceful indifference, blue oceans, scattered clouds, the faint glow of city lights on the night side. Everything looked normal. That was the worst part. Because it wasn't. "Sir," the first tech said, voice tighter now. "We've lost contact with ground stations. All of them." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Every single one?" "Yes, sir." Before he could respond, the station lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. Every head in the room snapped upward. "Tell me that's not what I think it is," someone muttered. Ethan didn't answer. He was already looking back at the display. More losses. Faster now. Like something was sweeping across orbit, erasing everything in its path. And then it stopped. Just like that. The remaining systems froze in place. No new losses. No movement. No signals. Silence, complete and suffocating. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, "Commander, you need to see this." Ethan turned toward the observation deck. The tone in the technician's voice wasn't fear. It was disbelief. Ethan pushed off and drifted through the hatch, grabbing the rail to steady himself as he reached the viewport. At first, he didn't understand what he was looking at. The stars were wrong. There were too many shadows. Then his brain caught up. And his blood ran cold. Something was there. No, many somethings. Massive shapes hung in orbit above the Pacific, so large they blocked out entire sections of the stars behind them. Sleek, dark, and curved, like colossal serpents coiled in the void. They hadn't arrived. They had been hiding. Cloaked. Waiting. "Oh my God," someone whispered behind him. The ships began to move. Not fast. Not aggressive. Deliberate. Controlled. Like predators that knew there was nowhere their prey could run. Ethan's mind raced. No known propulsion. No detectable emissions. No heat signatures. They weren't just advanced. They were impossible. "Are we being hailed?" he asked sharply. I don't know, sir. There's still no signal traffic. Wait." The comms console crackled. Every speaker aboard the station came alive at once, erupting in a burst of static so loud it made several crew members flinch. Then it cut. Replaced by a voice. If it could even be called that. It wasn't spoken in any language Ethan recognized, yet he understood it perfectly. The meaning bypassed sound, drilling straight into his mind. Cold. Ancient. Unfeeling. Submit, or be erased. No emotion. No anger. Just certainty. Ethan felt his hands tighten around the railing. "Identify yourself," he said, forcing the words out. "This is Commander Ethan Voss of the International Space." The sky answered him. A flash, brighter than the sun, erupted far below. Ethan's head snapped toward Earth. For a split second, everything looked the same. Then the ocean boiled. A column of light punched down from one of the massive ships, striking somewhere in the Pacific. The impact wasn't an explosion, it was annihilation. Water vaporized instantly, leaving behind a churning, expanding void. Shockwaves rippled outward, distorting the atmosphere. Another beam fired. This time, it struck land. A city vanished. No fire. No rubble. Just, gone. Jesus Christ, someone choked. Panic broke loose inside the station, shouting, scrambling, overlapping voices demanding answers no one had. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. His eyes were locked on the fleet above. On the way they shifted, repositioning with eerie precision. On the way they didn't rush. Didn't hesitate. Because they didn't need to. They had already won. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice barely more than a whisper. What the hell are you? The question hung in the silence. Unanswered. Below, the world burned. Earth fought back. It just didn't matter. Within minutes of the first strike, every major military power launched a full counteroffensive. From orbit, Ethan Voss watched it unfold in fragmented flashes, delayed feeds, broken telemetry, half-corrupted signals forcing their way through the silence. Missiles rose in coordinated waves from submarines, deserts, hidden silos buried deep beneath mountains. Fighter squadrons roared into the sky. Naval fleets repositioned, bristling with everything humanity had ever built to wage war. For a brief, fragile moment, it looked like resistance. Then reality caught up. The first wave of missiles never reached orbit. They simply stopped. Mid-flight, thousands of warheads froze as if time itself had gripped them. Then, one by one, they disintegrated, breaking apart into fine dust that scattered harmlessly into the upper atmosphere. No explosion. No interception. Just erased. "Sir, we're losing everything," one of the Resolute's tech said, voice trembling as new data trickled in. Ethan didn't respond. He was watching the fighter jets now. Dozens of them streaked upward, contrails carving desperate lines across the sky. They pushed higher, faster, pilots knowing exactly what they were flying into. Then their formations broke. Not from enemy fire. From within. Aircraft veered off course, spinning wildly as systems failed all at once. Some stalled and dropped. Others simply went dark, falling in eerie silence back toward the Earth they tried to defend. "They're shutting us down," Ethan muttered. "Not destroying, controlling." That was worse. Because it meant this wasn't brute force. It was dominance. Another transmission forced its way through the station speakers. The same voice. The same cold certainty. "Resistance is inefficient." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Yeah? We're just getting started." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Humanity wasn't just losing. It was being outclassed in every possible way. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, far below layers of reinforced concrete and classified lies, a different kind of decision was being made. General Marcus Hale stood at the center of a dimly lit command chamber, surrounded by screens that painted a dying world in real time. Cities blinking out. Defense grids collapsing. Entire regions going silent. No one spoke unless spoken to. Not anymore. Because there was nothing left to say. "Status," Hale demanded. A young officer swallowed hard. "Global response capacity is below 12% and dropping, sir. We've lost orbital coverage, long-range strike capability, and most communications infrastructure." Survivability projections? The hesitation this time was longer. Single-digit percentages. Silence settled over the room like a weight. Hale exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the central display, the alien fleet hanging over Earth like an executioner's blade. "Then we're out of time." He turned, walking toward a sealed console at the far end of the chamber. Two armed guards stepped aside without a word. "Sir," one of the senior advisors spoke up, voice cautious. "You're not seriously considering." Hale cut him off. "We didn't build it to sit in the ground while the planet burns. We don't even understand it." "No," Hale agreed, placing his hand against the biometric scanner. "But we understand the alternative." The console lit up. Authorization prompts cascaded across the screen, warnings, restrictions, fail-safes laid so deeply it had taken decades to bury them. Hale entered the final command. "Activating last defense protocol," he said, voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Operation Dragonfall." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the facility shuddered. Deep below, something massive began to wake. Back in orbit, Ethan felt the station vibrate faintly beneath his feet. What was that? One of the crew asked. No idea, Ethan said, though a strange unease settled in his chest. Something was changing. He could feel it. The alien fleet shifted again, several of the massive serpent-like ships breaking formation. Multiple targets descending, a tech shouted. They're heading for major population centers. Ethan pushed himself back toward the command console. Can we track their trajectories? Barely, but yes, sir. They're not scattering randomly. They're selecting targets. Strategic? Ethan asked. The tech looked up, pale. No, sir. A beat of silence. Population dense. Ethan's stomach dropped. They're not fighting a war, he said quietly. They're clearing us. Another impact lit up the planet below. Then another. And another. Entire regions went dark. The comms crackled again, but this time, it wasn't the invaders. It was human. Broken. Distorted. But human. Any station receiving, this is ground command, repeat, all surviving assets, fallback coordinates. The signal cut out in a burst of static. Then returned, weaker. Dragonfall protocol is active. I repeat, Dragonfall is active. Ethan froze. Dragonfall, one of the crew echoed. What the hell is that? Ethan shook his head. I don't know. But something about the word sent a chill through him. Like it wasn't meant to be heard. Like it had been waiting. Far below, deep beneath the surface of a desperate world, something ancient roared to life. And for the first time since the sky began to burn, the invaders hesitated. They pulled Ethan out of orbit under fire. Not from the invaders, but from failing systems. By the time the emergency shuttle detached from the ISS Resolute, half its navigation controls were unresponsive. Autopilot had collapsed into a loop, trying to correct for variables it couldn't understand. Manual override barely worked. Thrusters aren't responding properly, the pilot shouted, wrestling with the controls. It's like something's interfering. Ethan strapped in behind him, jaw tight. Just get us through the atmosphere. Above them, the alien fleet loomed, silent, watching. Waiting. For a brief, terrifying second, one of the serpent-like ships shifted in their direction. Its surface rippled, as if aware of their escape. Ethan held his breath. But the ship didn't fire. Didn't move closer. It just observed. Then turned away. Why didn't it shoot us down? The co-pilot whispered. Ethan didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. The descent was rough. Violent turbulence slammed the shuttle as it tore through the atmosphere, flames licking across the hull. Systems flickered in and out, alarms screaming from every panel. But somehow, they made it. The shuttle hit the ground hard in the Nevada desert, skidding across sand and rock before grinding to a halt just outside a heavily fortified installation. Before the dust even settled, armored vehicles surrounded them. Commander Ethan Voss, a soldier barked as the hatch opened. Ethan stepped out, boots hitting the ground for the first time since the invasion began. That's me. You're coming with us. Now. No explanation. No briefing. Just urgency. The base was unlike anything Ethan expected. No chaos. No panic. Just controlled intensity. Personnel moved with purpose, not fear. Doors opened and closed under strict authorization. Entire sections were locked behind layers of security that made standard military clearance look like a joke. They took him deeper. Far deeper. Down reinforced elevators that seemed to descend forever, into a place that didn't feel like part of the modern world. The doors finally opened into a massive underground hangar. Ethan stepped out. And stopped. What is that? The thing sitting in the center of the hangar wasn't a jet. Wasn't a spacecraft. It was something else entirely. Massive. Angular. Built like a weapon instead of a vehicle. Its surface was dark, almost obsidian-like, covered in faint markings that seemed to shift if you stared too long. No visible seams. No recognizable engines. No insignia. Just presence. Like it didn't belong on Earth. General Marcus Hale stood waiting near it, hands clasped behind his back. Took you long enough, Hale said. Ethan walked forward slowly, eyes never leaving the machine. You mind telling me what I'm looking at, General? Hale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the craft. We found it, he said finally. Buried under ice in Antarctica. Decades ago. Ethan blinked. Found it? It wasn't built by us, Hale continued. Not even close. A heavy silence settled between them. Ethan stepped closer, drawn toward the machine despite himself. Then why bring me here? Hale looked at him. Because it won't turn on. Ethan frowned. You dragged me across half a dying planet to show me a broken alien artifact. Hale's expression didn't change. It's not broken, he said. It's waiting. For what? Hale held his gaze. For you. Ethan let out a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, I don't think so. Step closer, Hale said. That's not. Commander, Hale cut in, voice firm. We don't have time for hesitation. Above them, faint vibrations rippled through the structure, the distant echoes of another strike hitting somewhere on the surface. Ethan clenched his jaw. Then stepped forward. Closer to the machine. Nothing happened at first. Just silence. Stillness. Then. The surface of the craft shifted. Not physically. But perceptibly. Like something beneath it had just noticed him. Lights flickered to life across its hull, soft at first, then brighter, patterns racing along the dark metal like veins filling with energy. The entire hangar seemed to hum. Behind Ethan, people stepped back instinctively. Sir, someone whispered. Ethan froze. The air felt heavier. Charged. Then the world tilted. Not physically. Mentally. A voice filled his head. Not through his ears. Through him. Pilot recognized. Ethan staggered, grabbing the side of the craft to steady himself. What the? Genetic lineage confirmed. His breath caught. I didn't do anything, he said, panic creeping into his voice. I don't even know what this is. Compatibility, absolute. Outside the hangar, alarms began to blare. Multiple inbound contacts, a technician shouted. The alien fleet is responding, they're converging on this location. Hale turned sharply. How the hell do they know? No one answered. Because the answer was obvious. The machine had just announced itself. Ethan pressed his hand against the surface, and this time, it reacted instantly. The hull split open along invisible seams, revealing an interior that glowed with shifting light. Panels formed out of nothing, reshaping themselves to fit him. Inviting him in. No, Ethan whispered. No, I didn't sign up for this. Synchronization required. I'm not a pilot for whatever you are. You are the last. That stopped him cold. What does that mean? No answer. Only silence. And the distant rumble of something massive approaching from above. Hale stepped closer, his voice lower now. Commander, he said. If that thing chose you, then you're all we've got. Ethan looked from the general, to the machine, to the opening that seemed to pulse with quiet, undeniable purpose. Above them, the world was ending. Below it, something ancient had just woken up. Ethan took a slow breath. Then stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the machine came alive. Light surged. Systems awakened. And across every surface, one designation burned into existence. Dragonfall unit, active. Ethan gripped the forming controls as the hangar trembled around him. His voice was barely a whisper. What did I just get myself into? The launch didn't feel like motion. It felt like reality breaking. 1 second, Ethan Voss was inside the Dragonfall unit, hands gripping controls that hadn't existed moments before. The next. The world vanished. No acceleration. No G-force. No roar of engines. Just a violent shift in perspective. The underground hangar disappeared, replaced by open sky and burning atmosphere. Clouds tore apart around him as the craft pierced upward, leaving behind nothing but a ripple in the air, as if space itself had been pushed aside. Ethan gasped. What the, how are we already? Transit complete. The voice inside his head was calm. Indifferent. Ethan looked out. He was already in orbit. Below him, Earth burned. Entire sections of the planet were dark now, scars spreading across continents where cities once stood. Fires glowed along coastlines. Storm systems twisted unnaturally from the energy discharges. And above, the fleet. Dozens of massive serpent-like ships hung in formation, their dark forms coiling across the void. For a fraction of a second, everything was still. Then they moved. All contacts shifting. Ethan muttered, eyes darting across the suddenly alive interface. They see me. Confirmed. The alien ships broke formation instantly, surrounding him in a tightening spiral. Their movements were no longer slow or deliberate. Now they were precise. Aggressive. Hunters responding to a threat. Ethan's grip tightened. All right, let's see what you can do. The Dragonfall unit didn't respond to buttons. It responded to intent. The moment the thought crossed his mind, the craft moved. Not forward. Not sideways. Just somewhere else. Space folded, snapping him out of the encirclement in a blink. One of the serpent ships loomed directly ahead, its massive hull stretching for miles, its surface rippling like living armor. Ethan barely had time to react. Fire. He didn't finish the command. Because he didn't need to. The Dragonfall unit unleashed something that wasn't a beam, wasn't a projectile. But both. A concentrated lance of energy tore from the craft, striking the alien ship dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the impossible occurred. The ship split. Cleanly. Silently. Its massive body sheared in two, the halves drifting apart as if gravity had simply forgotten how to hold them together. No way, Ethan breathed. The surrounding ships reacted instantly. Energy flared across their surfaces as they opened fire. This time, Ethan felt it. Not physically. Mentally. A surge of incoming trajectories, attack vectors, impact points, all flooding his awareness at once. Too many. Correction. The Dragonfall unit moved again. Dozens of energy blasts tore through the space where he had been, but he was already gone, reappearing behind another ship. Strike. Gone. Reappear. Strike again. Each movement was instantaneous. Each attack precise. The alien fleet wasn't just being challenged. It was being dismantled. One ship exploded in a cascade of light. Another imploded, its structure collapsing inward. A third simply vanished, erased from existence by a weapon Ethan couldn't begin to understand. For the first time, the invaders faltered. Their formation broke. Not strategically, but instinctively. Ethan felt it then. A flicker. A shift in the presence surrounding him. They're scared, he said, almost disbelieving. Acknowledged. But how? They've been wiping us out like we're nothing. You are not the target. Ethan's breath caught. Then what is? The answer came not in words, but in movement. The remaining ships pulled back suddenly, creating distance. Not retreating. Making space. For something else. Ethan turned. And saw it. The largest vessel in the fleet. It hadn't moved until now. It didn't need to. The command ship dwarfed everything around it, its coiled structure stretching across kilometers of space. Its surface pulsed with a deep, ominous glow, energy building, gathering, focusing. Tell me that's not what I think it is, Ethan muttered. Threat level, extinction. Yeah, figured. The massive ship began to charge. Space around it warped, bending under the sheer density of power being drawn into a single point at its core. Ethan felt the danger immediately. Not just to him. To Earth. If that thing fires. Planetary annihilation probable. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then we don't let it fire. He pushed forward. The Dragonfall unit surged toward the command ship, but this time, it wasn't instant. The distance was too great. The target too massive. And the enemy knew it. The command ship released a wave of energy. Not an attack. A barrier. A distortion field that rippled outward, warping space and slowing his approach. Ethan gritted his teeth. It's trying to keep me out. Confirmed. The charge continued. Faster now. Brighter. Ethan could feel the time slipping away. Below him, Earth turned, unaware of how close it was to complete erasure. Come on, think, he muttered, scanning the interface. There's got to be a way through that field. For a brief moment. Nothing. Then. A flicker of understanding. Not from him. From the machine. A new set of controls formed beneath his hands, shifting into place as if they had always been there. Solution available. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Let's hear it. Direct penetration. He blinked. You mean fly straight through it? Affirmative. Ethan let out a short, incredulous laugh. That's your plan? The energy in front of him intensified, the barrier thickening as the command ship prepared to fire. Time was gone. Ethan steadied his breathing, locking his gaze on the glowing core of the massive vessel. All right, he said quietly. Let's end this. The Dragonfall unit surged forward. Straight into the distortion field. And everything exploded into light. The moment Ethan hit the barrier, reality shattered. Light swallowed everything. Not the bright flash of an explosion, not the burning glare of energy weapons, this was something deeper. A distortion that ripped through perception itself. Space twisted. Time stretched. For a split second. Ethan wasn't in the battle anymore. He was somewhere else. He stood on a world that wasn't Earth. The sky burned crimson, streaked with black clouds that moved too fast, too violently. The ground beneath his feet was cracked, lifeless, covered in the ruins of something that had once been a city. Alien structures towered in the distance, sleek, elegant, destroyed. And above, the same serpentine ships. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They filled the sky, blotting out everything, just as they had over Earth. Ethan turned slowly, heart pounding. What is this? Memory. The voice of Dragonfall echoed through him. Not cold this time. Ancient. Heavy. This already happened. Ethan asked. This has always happened. A beam of light tore down from the sky, striking the distant city. It vanished in an instant, just like the ones on Earth. Ethan clenched his fists. They've been doing this everywhere. Confirmed. The vision shifted. Another world. Another sky. Different species. Different cities. Same outcome. Annihilation. Again. And again. And again. Civilizations rising, only to be erased. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. And no one stopped them? For the first time? The answer came with weight. Correction. The world around him changed once more. This time, the sky wasn't empty. A single object tore through the alien fleet like a blade. Fast. Precise. Unstoppable. Ships exploded. Formations collapsed. The serpentine invaders scattered for the first time. Ethan stared. That's you. Designation, Dragonfall. The realization hit him like a shockwave. You've fought them before. Across cycles. Cycles? The vision deepened. Worlds evolving. Species rising. Time passing. Then, the invaders returning. And every time, Dragonfall waiting. Buried. Hidden. Dormant. Until the moment it was needed. Ethan's voice dropped. You're not just a weapon. A pause. Then, I am a contingency. The vision collapsed. Ethan slammed back into reality. The distortion field still raged around him, tearing at the Dragonfall unit as it forced its way through. Alarms pulsed, not in sound, but in sensation, sharp warnings cutting through his mind. Structural integrity decreasing. Hold together. Ethan shouted. We're almost through. The command ship loomed ahead, its massive core glowing brighter than ever. The charge was nearly complete. There was no time left. Ethan gritted his teeth. You said cycles, that means this isn't the first time they've come back. Confirmed. And you've always stopped them? A brief silence. Then. Not always. Ethan's stomach dropped. Then why us? Why now? The answer came as the barrier finally broke. The Dragonfall unit burst through into open space, directly in front of the command ship's core. The energy there was overwhelming, a concentrated sphere of annihilation, seconds from release. And then, the truth. Humanity reached threshold. Ethan's eyes widened. Threshold for what? Compatibility. Resistance. Survival probability. The realization hit hard. You weren't waiting for us specifically. A pause. Then. You were prepared. Ethan let out a slow breath. All of it, the discovery in Antarctica, the silence, the activation. It wasn't chance. It was timing. The command ship pulsed. The weapon was about to fire. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls, feeling the Dragonfall unit respond, every system aligning, every ounce of power channeling into a single point. One shot, he whispered. Affirmative. Below him, Earth turned slowly. Wounded. Burning. But still there. Still fighting. Ethan steadied himself. For every world they wiped out. The energy built. For every civilization that didn't get a second chance. The light grew blinding. This ends now. He surged forward. The Dragonfall unit drove straight into the core of the command ship, past its defenses, past its armor, into the heart of its power. And fired. There was no explosion. No sound. Just silence. The massive ship froze. Cracks of light spread across its surface, racing outward in jagged lines. Then, it split. The entire vessel tore apart from the inside, collapsing in on itself as the energy it had gathered turned against it. The shockwave rippled outward, scattering the remaining fleet. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, one by one, the serpent ships began to retreat. Not regrouping. Not strategizing. Running. Ethan watched them go, barely breathing. They're leaving. Cycle terminated. The tension drained from his body all at once. Earth was safe. For now. But as the Dragonfall unit drifted in orbit, systems beginning to dim, Ethan felt something else. Something unfinished. You said cycles, he murmured. That means they'll come back. A long pause followed. Then. I will remain. Ethan's vision blurred slightly as exhaustion hit him. Waiting, for the next time. Affirmative. The lights around him began to fade. The power draining. Hey, Ethan said softly. Next time, maybe give us a little more warning. No response. Just silence. And as the Dragonfall unit powered down, drifting above a scarred but surviving world, one final thought echoed in Ethan's mind. Not a voice. Not a command. A truth. This wasn't the end. It never was. It was only the pause between storms.